I am Kilian. I'm a Dutch 3D artist and I'm 20 years old. I'm also still studying, so this is kind of my hobby, but I would like to make it into my job someday. But for now, it's just a hobby for me, and I'm studying to become a preschool teacher. So I found out about the challenge a little bit late, but also not too late. And I found out that there was a couple of prizes that you could win. And when I submitted, I was one of the first ones to submit. And everyone was very enthusiastic about my render. And I made it in one day. I participate in a lot of other challenges as well. And most of the times I don't win, even though I think it looks good, then someone else wins anyways. But this time it came out as the winning render, and it was really surprising to me. So when I make a challenge, I get a rough idea in my head. So this time I wanted to make a ice castle was my first idea. And then I just go looking for an asset that I could incorporate in my render. So in this case, I was looking for a castle. And if I can't find a nice asset, a nice looking castle, I will go with a different idea. So I went through Sketchfab and I looked for a model. And then I came across this awesome castle model by Matusek Photo. He makes awesome 3D scans, and he made a 3D scan of this massive castle on a hill. And it not only gave me the right model to work with, it also gave me inspiration because I used the shape of the photo scan, so of the real mountain, to shape my own creation. For environmental pieces, I like to use just scans of nature assets. So I used mega scans. They have some really nice rocks. And to keep my project running smoothly and not too heavy, I like to use 4 of them and just duplicate them and scatter them around the same piece, so that it doesn't get too big, the file size. And for this case, I had to make snow on top of the environmental pieces because they don't have snow straight out of the box. So I needed to make something like that. So that's basically, I always look for a main asset, I work around that. Then I look for assets to work around it, and you gotta change all the assets so that it looks like one cohesive thing, instead of multiple pieces, one from Megascan, one from Sketchfab, one from Blender Market. To make them all work together, you got to change the textures and the material a little bit so that it can all work into one piece. And then once I have pretty much the final layout, I'll start and add some little details like snow in this case, some clouds. My workflow is pretty simple, honestly. Most people use a whole reference board. But I don't like to do this. I like to work around a model that I find. And it took one day, I would say about 6 hours. So I tried to make my own shader, and I also shared it for the other people in the challenge because it was about Winter Wonderland, and snow is a big thing in the winter. So I made a node group where it looks at the model and it looks at whether something is the top side. So if the piece of the model is looking up, if it's looking up the piece of the model, then it will get snow added on it. So if it's looking to the side, it won't get any snow because snow falls from the top. So I would like all the snow to be on top of something. And I just applied that to everything. And that's basically how I got the snow on everything to look like it came falling from above. I used a snow material from Polyhaven. This is a website where you can get CC0 assets. So that means that you could even sell them basically. So it's no one's property. CC0 means you can use it for anything, everything. So I put that in the nodes group so that I didn't just rip it from their website and sold it on. I'm giving it away for free anyways, but I used it as the material for this node so that the snow looks good and realistic. And that is how I created the snow. So I like to start working with an HDRI. That basically means an image of an environment that lights the scene. So I always use the same HDRI to start working, and that HDRI has a all around a lighting that's like pretty even on all sides. So everything is pretty evenly lit. So you get a nice preview of how everything looks without sharp shadows or anything. And once I am done with placing everything and I want to look how to light it, I bring in a sky texture. So that's just a sky where you can move the sun around. And I recently bought the physical atmosphere add-on. That's a sky texture, but also with clouds and with nice, you also have stars and a lot of control around the lighting settings. And I once got a tip from a architectural visualization artist that you want the sun, you want half of the building lit very well, and the other half you want a bit in shadow, because that gives more sense of the 3D object, because you got some shadows and you got some highlights, and you want to get basically that. So I tried to achieve that, but I didn't want too harsh of a shadow, so a pretty soft shadow, because I want everything to be pretty visual and detailed. So I used 4 environmental assets from Megascans, like the rocks and the ground, and I pieced them all together. And when it came straight out of Blender, you could see that there were separate objects. So that one was laid like this and one was layered like this, and you could see that there was an edge where they covered each other. You could see that they were overlapping, and you could see that there were different objects. And I could either go in and add many more assets or change them and painstakingly, but I already thought that they were laid down pretty well. So what I do when I have my final image, I always go into a paint software, in this case Krita, which is also free, and you can just put in the render and start painting over it. So I use the clone brush to clone some of the, so if they're overlapping, I use the right one to clone a bit of itself over the part where you could see that they were overlapping, so that it doesn't look like they're overlapping, but like they're as if they're one object. So I did that for all the parts where they were overlapping, and in the end I didn't hear the person who critiqued my render, Kaizen, who the challenge was from. I didn't hear him say anything about the overlapping, so I guess I did a good job. I heard a friend who also, he got 3rd place in another challenge, and he got interviewed by Renderfarm as well. I think that's the first time I heard about it. I would like to use a render farm, but I don't render animations that often. Like very rarely I render animations. So for the one time I do render an animation, I have a pretty good computer. I like to use my own computer. But when I'm going to work on a short film that takes a lot of time, for example, I would definitely use something like Renderfarm. I wanna win more weekly challenges. It sounds kind of stupid, but that's kind of the place where my fire for challenges and 3D started. So I really want to get more into those and really start winning those. And I think once I got the hang of it and win a bit more there, I think I can leave that behind me and go on with some other stuff. I'm also still studying, like I said, to become a preschool teacher. And after I'm done with my study, I want to pursue this 3D dream of mine.